Welcome and well-met adventure. Come inside, warm yourself by the fire, grab a cold pint, and join us for the 4th episode of Tavern Talk, From Idea to Art. I am your host, Aggelos, and with me is, well, we got lots of people. First off, we have Asteldian back. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back. I thought I'd better turn up before you forget who the hell I am.
Well, yeah, I know. It's been a while since we've had you on, so it's good to have you back.
Good to be back.
We also have a couple gentlemen from Stormhaven Studios. First off, executive producer Tim Anderson, as always. How are you? He doesn't have a filter today. It's going to be amazing.
Nobody's here to ball gag me.
That's right. We also have 2 new faces today. This will be a fun episode because this is an entire episode dealing with world building and art and its creation within Saga of Lucimia. So we have, first off, Andrew Phippen, there we go, got it right, sorry. He is our world building extraordinaire. How are you, sir?
I'm not too bad. I don't have my camera running at the moment, but yeah, I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's all right. It's all good. It's all good. Neither does Asteldian, but he thinks cameras are for pervs, so...
Damn right.
That's because he just wants to film the show naked.
Well, we already had Tim. Well, I am just in a dressing gown.
Hey, that's not supposed to be talked about. Just, take it down a notch.
Well, yeah. I can't really say this is a family show, but I don't want to get banned on YouTube. So let's see what I got to do here.
Well, you already talked about Tim and his ball gags.
That's true, we did. Saga Lucimia are branded ones you can get. It's pretty amazing. All right. Also joining us, Mr. Joe Bennett, who is one of the artists over there. And now, see, I feel like I got to do something more than just artist. Help me out here. We got to think of a better title. We got world building extraordinaire, but artist is just so generic.
Artiste.
Yeah. Give it a little flair to it. Church it up a little bit. I like it. You probably noticed. You've noticed, obviously, if you've been following Saga of Lucimia, some of his work. You might not have known it was him, but he did all the work on the website for all the chapter art and a bunch of other stuff, which we're going to talk about later. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Glad to have you with.
Good to be here.
We started the show a little early, and Joe was the first person I added to the call. Everyone else waited about 15 minutes as we started talking about different art. So
This is true. My wife even came in and was like, "What? Are you not doing it yet?"
it's all our fault. We have
She was
issues.
talking about the show, yeah?
Yeah.
No, I just made everyone else wait while we talked about everything else. So that's how it goes. Art always fascinates me because I am not an artistic person. I am a logical, left brain kind of guy. It just doesn't work for me. So to be able to actually talk to these fine gentlemen and find out from them their creative process is actually really, really cool. So first off, I'm going to let Tim take over here for a few minutes. He's going to kind of tell us a little bit about what they have coming up and what they've been working on.
Okay, so the first thing I want to do is kind of show everybody. You guys see my screen all right here?
Well, yeah, it ate
a little
up the
small.
cameras, but yeah, we see it.
Yeah. So we are actually, servers are up and live, so anybody who wants to log in and play around this weekend, you can come and play around while the server's up until Sunday night at 8 Eastern Time. This is not, this is the same build as last April, so we haven't added anything new to this build because all the stuff we're adding new is still behind the scenes. We're not ready to share that with the public yet. This is just for those of you who couldn't make it in April, and for all the pre-orders that have come in since then. We got this build up and going for you guys, so log in, have fun. Some of us might be around over the next couple of days, but this is mostly just kind of a free-for-all. Anybody who wants to go in and just hang around and check stuff out, but we're not doing any official bucket-kicking sessions for this particular build.
Very nice.
Go ahead and ask.
I was actually going to say, that kind of fits in for one question we had. We posted up this on our Discord channel
Sure.
And one of the questions that was asked for new backers, I know you've answered this for us, but for new backers, they were asking, while these servers are up, are we allowed to share our experiences?
Yeah, none of this is under NDA. The current place that we're using for our early access builds is what we're calling the training camp, and it's essentially a small little zone, a tavern setting, and an attached dungeon. And we're using this as the testing grounds for all of the game mechanics that we're putting into the game. So we're not actually sharing any game content here. We're not sharing anything that's secret, anything that needs to be locked behind an NDA. So you can come in, take screenshots, you can stream, you can record videos, you can share it out. We want you to share it out. That helps us immensely to share this out with everyone. We appreciate those of you who do. So yeah, no worries on that stuff. The only thing we can just remind people is that this is obviously very early alpha, so anything you see is placeholder. These are not the final character models. There's no actual group UI in the game yet. This is just a rough alpha. This was, the April build was us getting back up and running on our new networking solution and making sure that it was all working, and getting rough combat in place. So that's all there. There's some basic abilities, 3 classes that you can choose from, but it's very rough. So just remember, this is very early alpha. This is not a finished game. This is not a marketing or promotional tool. This is us wanting to document the process and just being open with people and sharing that along the way. So just anybody who wants to come in, screenshot, do whatever you want to do. Yeah. On...
We lost Joe there for a minute, so he should probably be back, hopefully.
Might have hiccuped.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, we have switched all of the hosting over for Stormhaven Studios and Saga of Lucimia domains ahead of our next chunk of work, which is what actually Richard was working on all day today, which is all the PayPal integration for the next stage of what we're doing for the website, which is the implementation of our membership program and the affiliate program. So soon-ish, those of you who have been asking us for the past 6 months how you can increase your pledge, increase your pre-order, you'll be able to do that shortly. You're going to be able to do that one of 3 ways. One is going to be by a monthly fee, which right now we're doing like a $5, $10, and $15 a month option for those of you who want to pay a monthly fee and increase your pre-order over time. And there will be benefits to paying that once you hit like a 12-month mark. If you've been paying monthly for 12 months, we're going to have perks in there. And if you hit 24 months, etc. Although we won't have 24 months till we launch, but there will be perks in there the longer you pay into that. There will be the ability to do a one-time. So like you want to dump $75 this month, $25 next month, $50 the month after that, you can do so. And then there will be the affiliate program, which is where we're going to give everybody their own unique code. You'll be able to share that with your friends, and you'll be able to then earn a percentage. It's not set in stone right now, but we're going to say ballpark between 15 and 25% more or less. You'll be earning that towards your own pre-order status. So if you bring a $100 pre-order to the table, you'll get X% of that applied to your own pre-order tier, and you'll work your way up. So that's all getting worked on right now. We're going to be doing a website redesign somewhat, not a complete revamp, but a small redesign. What else? Awesome. That's what Richard's doing. Robert is stuff that I'm not allowed to talk about. He's revamping the character creation and some stuff that I can't talk about, and he's enhancing the combat and some other stuff I can't talk about.
There's a phrase for this, Tim, and it says it's better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. So just let it go and then beg for forgiveness later.
I can't do it. He won't share anything with me if I leak anything, so I'm being kept in check. No, but there's a lot of stuff going on. We're hoping that the next build is going to be August, end of August. It might be September, but we're really hoping that it'll be end of August. It honestly depends on a few factors. Robert's moving to Austin shortly, so once he gets moved there, so there's going to be a transitional period for him for a few weeks. Once he gets settled in, he's going to be getting in and starting working on the next evolution of the combat. So we're hoping that the next build. I mean, no promises, but we're hoping to have some more of the basic masteries and some of the basic skills in place, so that you can actually have more than just a couple of attacks. But no promises. You know, we still got to get some other stuff in there. Richard's going to be working on the actual group UI, and some other stuff. But so August-ish will be the next big build for people. Actually see new stuff. And then we got all sorts of other stuff. If Joe gets back, I'm not sure he hiccuped. Is he?
He's offline right now. I'm keeping an eye on it. So as soon as he comes back on, I'll add him back in.
Let me open up Hangouts, because sometimes if he's got Hangouts on his phone, he'll hit me a message. So I'll open that up real quick.
Yeah, no worries. It's not technical issues, things like this.
He's happy.
I'm sure you guys deal with that fairly often, because I know you guys are all remote. Like you don't have a central studio yet.
I think everybody's got their own idiosyncrasies. Andrew has power issues sometimes, and I have Mexican internet. So it's actually, they finally got fiber optic to Cancun after all these years. So at least it's a 50 down, 5 up. I never get that. I get like 30 down, 2 or 3 up, but it still is not the best. But it's better than I've had for the last 5-6 years. So, but for the most part, we just work around it. I mean, it's not really critical for, if somebody is gone for 10 or 15 minutes, we still have Slack and all the other ways that we communicate. So
right. I keep checking. If you guys ever notice the thing that goes over my face on the video, it's because I keep checking for Joe.
Yep.
Okay. I know you were working on new. Why am I drawing a blank on them? Help me out here, Tim. Pillars of Gameplay with
Pillars of Gameplay. Yeah, we're doing another episode tomorrow. We're recording another episode, and probably one on Sunday. It depends on what we're trying to do. Is I'm trying to get more people on the shows, because I've got a lot of other developers in this team who are always busy, and a lot of them it's because they have wives and kids, so it's really hard for them to find time. They're working on the game every single day, but having extra time to come on a show is not necessarily always a reality for these people. So we're trying to coordinate with the art team, for example. Getting Joe on is a rarity, because Joe doesn't get home until late, and he works a boatload of hours. Self-edit, sorry. And Emma, for example, is switched over. She's getting up at like 3 a.m. for some work-related stuff, so she can't make late-night episodes like this. And then her weekends, she's doing a lot of freelancing as well as work. But you guys, it looks like Joe just jumped back on, by the way. I just saw ping on Slack.
Yep, I see it. I'm going to add him back in here.
Emma, you guys have seen her screenshots. So that chick is freaking hardcore. She puts out a lot of content. So between her and Joe, we've got plenty of artwork getting worked on. So, yeah.
I know she's been kicking out the concepts like crazy.
Back, Joe.
Had some technical issues.
It's all good.
It's called the kids.
Oh man.
It's all good. I sort of figured we vamped for you.
Great, thanks.
All right. Gotta get the cameras back up here and ready to go. But I guess at this point, Asteldian, let's hit up a couple of our questions that we had. Do you still have the list while I work on these cameras? Yes?
I think I had to step away. That was a few minutes ago, but I don't think he's back yet.
Okay. Well then, I'll do it.
So I can ramble if I need to.
Yeah, go ahead and ramble for a minute.
Or if you have questions, Prep, just ask questions.
Yeah, but I need to get these cameras working. So yeah, go ahead and ramble.
Well, I'll ramble while you do that. So, a lot of what we talked about earlier with what Joe's been working on, all the chapter work art that you've seen up till I think chapter 8 was when we pulled him off of those because we needed him working on 3D art. So I just shared a screenshot at about maybe a week ago. It could have been less than that, of one of the tower. It was our first official 3D asset that's been completed. You're completely finished with that, Joe, or that was just like the first final draft? I think that was because there's still 4 towers that go around that. That's just the central tower, right? Yeah,
I think you're muted there, bud.
I'll get this right. Yeah, there's the 4 towers with interconnecting to the tower, the central tower. But yeah, I guess that's the main part of the structure, though.
Okay. So, like, he's been working on that stuff, so we pulled him off the concept a while back. He's also done, if you've noticed in the build, there are some custom avatars on the top left. He did the custom avatars for that. And like I said, about half the panels for the game trailer. And Emma, who is our other artist who couldn't be here tonight because of her work schedule, she was the one who did the other half of the art panels for the trailer, and she did she did the trailer. Like, she did the animation sequence at the beginning, she did all that. She did all the sequencing, she matched all the music and the narration and everything else together. Obviously, Dave worked on the music and the sound effects, but Emma was the driving force behind the trailer, and then she's done, I would say, pretty much all of the concepts for the Ellen High, apart from the tower concept, which was what Joe worked on like 6 months ago. But she finished up with the concepts for Ellen High, I think about a month ago. And then we've been diving into June was getting started with actual production of Ellen High assets. So the art team is now moving away from concepts and getting into actual modeling right now. And then we've got...
and this actually, this spawns something that would be really, really fascinating. I'm actually kind of curious about. This is a question I have. Based on the lore of the game, the Elder races have been gone for an insanely long time. Okay?
Most of them, yeah.
Yeah. With that being said, it's kind of... The whole premise of them disappearing kind of reminds me of like the Elder Scrolls with the Dwemer, how their artifacts still remain in the world.
Right.
The concept that you were drawing, as well as the one that you're modeling, looks pretty up there. How do you then take that model? Because I'm sure they're drawing it, and the way the concept is, you're trying to draw it like it would be if they were still there. But now you have to age it millennia. What's your process for that? Do you create the thing as it is and then decide how I'm going to age?
The reason we're doing this is because eventually, you know, and I've been pretty open about this, and it's pretty obvious some of the key plot points of this. So obviously the role of Volume 1 is to get to the end and to go find the Book of Knowledge and bring magic back into the realm. And that's going to require you actually hunting down and finding the Elder races, or at least the ones who are still around, who have been in hiding. That includes the Ellenhai, the Dwerhai, and the Eldenai, who become playable races in Volume 2. Which means that we're actually, right now, we're creating the actual assets that will be used in Volume 2, and also in specific key sections at the end of Volume 1, in terms of what you're going to find when you get into the depths of the Ellenhai Forest. You're actually going to see these structures in their full glory. And then we're building them modularly, so it's just like it's like Legos. So what you can do then is you can just break bits and pieces off, and we'll have to do a little bit of custom aging, but that's really all you do is you just go, okay, this is the same tower that we're going to use in these 5 different ruins, but it's going to look slightly different in each one because we're going to be breaking off different bits and pieces of it to age it differently depending on where it's at in the world. So if maybe there's a tree growing through it in this one, maybe half of it fell over in this one, maybe there's sand and it's piled up against it in this one. So these are the ways that we're going to do it. And we're not actually done any of that right now because we're in the process of building all of these in their full glory, and then we'll strip them down from there and beat them up and break them as we need to.
Right. And actually, yes, you can. It just took me 2 seconds. I made a new window so I can actually share that out. So if you want to share your screen, Joe, we can do that.
Okay. So yeah, it's kind of the process of what we've been talking about. So basically, this is in the software right now. So basically, what I've done is I will model this. Hold on a second. I will model this and then basically destroy it. That's if.
Oh, and you're using ZBrush. Very nice.
My computer.
Yeah, he's a big fan. He's a big fan.
I love ZBrush.
That's all he talks about.
That is all I talk.
If you let him go, he will talk for an hour about ZBrush.
Oh yeah. Let me just.
Man, and I feel kind of... I'm just using Blender when I do my stuff, and I just feel kind of like amateur, which I am, but...
Sorry, my computer's just acting really weird tonight, obviously. But yeah, so let's see. This is just okay. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. But
no, this is actually really cool to be able to see, like, because this is something that not a lot of people actually get to see.
No, so yeah, this is basically a part of the tower that is carved. It's carved into it, like a deity, whatnot, whatever you have. So would just be a model. I can change the geometry. It's on the highest level right now.
Right.
So,
well, most ZBrush models generally have very high poly count, do they not?
Well, there's newer features that, like ZModeler, that actually handles it like any other, like a Blender.
Mm-hmm.
So, like this helmet right here is actually modeled in ZBrush. So as you can see, it's really low poly, right?
Right.
Let me just clear this layer. So this enables you to kind of go back and forth within ZBrush without having to import models into it. So you can adjust the subdivision levels, as you can see, to get the fine sculpted details into it, right? So this is where you get the age stressed look to it. So, yeah.
That is really, really awesome.
Yeah, because basically what you can do is you can just strip it back from the fine detail, and it's just weathering, so that it's been exposed to the elements, and then from there, and then when we're talking about bricks or block structures or brick structures, we could just rip chunks and pieces off. So. Yeah,
exactly. So that's the beautiful thing about this. I know, like, there's other software, but this is just my preferred software for the details, right?
Right.
And obviously, the best way to go about it is model it pristine and then destroy it afterwards.
Nice. All right. I'm so glad you have that. Now, actually, one of the things I really wanted to talk about with each one of you to get a little bit more background, since Asteldian's still away, I think. Just ping me when you're back. Even though if you're not here, you can't hear it anyway. Joe, you showed us the tower that you're working on. Could you give us a little bit of background of what you've been doing at Stormhaven, like what some of the projects you've been doing? Like, I know Tim gave us a little synopsis, but you can kind of give us a little bit more.
Yeah, basically, that is the front end stuff. There's a lot of things kind of in the background that I've even been keeping under my hat until the time's right.
No better time than now.
Just brainstorming. Whatever time I have, basically, I'm jotting down in my sketchbook. Just trying to come up with different NPCs, looks for bosses, that kind of thing. That's all kind of background stuff, but generally the way it works is say for chapter content, I will get a copy of the chapter and basically interpret it through my eyes, what Tim's wrote down. Same thing goes with any type of asset. You know, we just sit down, kind of talk about it, go over, you know, what type of looks we're going for. I may come with a few different ideas, and then he'll tell me like this one looks good. We'll go from there. Yeah, basically that type of thing. Yeah, I can't really.
And this is something I'm gonna work with you on this one.
Okay.
With Tim, when Tim comes with you, Tim has an idea, some crazy idea about Ellen High and ball gags, okay?
Yep.
And he brings that to you.
Yep.
What is your process for when he's trying to describe it? If he even provides you specific, I don't know, maybe he provides you a screenshot of something that he says kind of looks familiar, but you know, kind of like,
yeah,
sort of like this. But as an artist, you can't just copy one for one. It has to be unique. What is your process?
Well, as far as, I don't know, I think so far up until this point, Tim and I have kind of hit it off in the sense that what he's describing, it just kind of pops into my head. I guess we're kind of on the same wavelength with certain things because I don't think we've really had any type of back and forth issues on anything that.
No, it's usually pretty smooth because if I've got chapter content, I usually have in my mind what I want him to create. So I can very easily say, here's the paragraph or the 6 paragraphs that describe the scene that I want you to draft. Go for it. And then sometimes there's a removal of a couple of elements, but there's also artistic. I allow Joe to do what he does.
Artistic license.
Yeah, because look, I mean, for example, if you look at the chapter 1 artwork where you've got Darren and his friend sitting there on the rooftop looking out over Fingless Mirror and the bay. The statue that's looming over the mouth of the bay, that's not in the book. I don't care. It's artistic creativity, and I don't think it's no different than the Game of Thrones show being different than the Game of Thrones book, or Lord of the Rings being different on film than it is in book form.
There's some Tolkienites there who might complain about that.
I'm not a purist. I'm not a purist.
Oh, I'm a purist.
I love Tolkien, but I love it in all forms. I love Star Wars in all forms. I love Star Trek in all forms. So it's one of those things where I said, you know, I don't really care what he does as long as it looks good when it's done. So there's been a lot of artistic license, and then when it comes to what we've been doing for like the artwork for the Ellen High, I already had in my mind what I wanted to see from the fantasy standpoint. But then we went and looked at the original. Basically, the inspiration for this was looking at the ruins of Angkor Wat, and that style of Cambodian ruins and Indonesian and the I think it's Southeast Asia, and looking at how they integrated these massive trees into these block and brick structures and the spires with all the carved reliefs and faces on them, and that kind of inspired us in how we wanted to take that Ellen High artwork in that direction. And so once we had that down, I created a Pinterest board which had, I don't know, like 30 or 40 different bits and pieces of things that I spent a couple of months curating. And then once I had a pretty complete list, I sent it to those guys and was like, you know, this is my idea. Give me a bunch of concept art. And it's a little different because with Joe, I already knew what I wanted for the tower. Actually, you did Dwerheg towers first. I remember this now because you did like 4 Dwerheg towers. And then I saw one of them that I didn't like, and I said, you know, I like that, but let's make it a wood tower and make it a tree, and then we took that and we melded it and made it into something Ellen high. And then when what Emma worked on is basically once she had all that Pinterest board is she just went crazy, and I just said, just throw me stuff, just take a month and just throw me a bunch of concepts. And she came up with, I don't know, 40 or 50 concepts, and I went through and I took the George Lucas approach where I just looked at the board and I said X X X, I like this one, check mark, check mark, check mark, X X X X, check mark, check mark. These are the ones I like, these are the ones I don't like. Store them away somewhere because we might use them later. These are the ones I want you to take to the second round. Then we did a second round draft, and then I came back from that. I said, okay, well, I like this that you did here, but this, maybe you could change this over here. I love that, and we tweaked it again. And then the third round was when we did, we said, okay, these are the third drafts. Now let's take that and make them into final form. So it's been a fairly, I try to be as detailed as possible when I give people instructions because I know how I like my clients to be with me in terms of freelancing over the last 20 years. I need to know exactly what you want so that I can get it done right. So I'm a big fan of bullet points and lists and maps and PowerPoints, and just give me detail because I don't want to make mistakes. It's better to do it once, measure twice, cut once. It's the best way to do it. And it's even been that way for the world builders, with the exception of Andrew, who is kind of newer to the team, and we kind of turned him loose and just let him go crazy. But even before that, I've done rough drafts of some of the zones for people and then handed them off. But I try not to micromanage people. It's with most of what Alex has done, and my brother as well, Joey. It's been, here's the world map. And we basically went in and we gridded it out, and we said these are the grids for the zones, more or less. It's not completely anatomically correct, but here's the grids. Here's what each zone has in it. It's got coastline, forests, mountain, plains. Here's a city, an outpost, or whatever. And then they kind of have the freedom to make that zone look however they want without any interference from me. And then when they come back, I can look at it and I could take the zone and go, okay, I like all that. Now go in with whether it's my tablet or whatever, and I could just go in and say, I want to put, here, I'm going to draw some stick figures, so here's some stick structures. I want to put a little outpost here, and let's put a tower over here, and let's put a castle up there. But in most cases, like with Alex comes up with all his own stuff. So it's been great because he just says, and I'm going to put a castle up there, I'm going to put docks down there, and I'm like, man, just go for it. So, and I'll let Andrew speak here in a minute.
I was going to say, Andrew, we haven't heard from you, and Asteldian, you are back, correct?
Yeah, I am finally back.
Excellent. Understand, burying bodies takes a long time, so yeah, get a good shovel. We're going to talk to Andrew here real quick, get a little bit of background on what he's doing, and then I'm going to have you kind of jump into your questions that you had. Do you still have those available?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because we haven't had a chance to let Andrew talk. I want to make sure he gets a chance. Andrew, world building extraordinaire. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started with Stormhaven Studios and what you've kind of been working on and what your process is?
Yeah, well, I originally started with these guys through Undone. A few years back, there was a soda we were having scene
Robert,
jams.
by the way.
Yes, Robert. We're having scene jams, and we were kind of in competition against each other, developing random maps and whatever for their 48-hour scene jams. And it was just by chance that I actually come across Saga of Lucimia and made a comment on one of the videos that was posted up, and he actually mentioned that we were doing these scene jams together. So I kind of steamrolled from there, and I was just posting up various scenes that I've been doing just out of fun. I've never done this professionally before. It's just basically a hobby for me. And they kind of like what they're saying, and it's just kind of, going from there. But over the last couple of weeks, I've been building a dungeon. I haven't been going off any kind of concepts or anything like that, as Tim had said. It's just kind of said, just go for it and build what you like to build. So everything that I have done up to this point has just been what's just kind of coming out of my head. So it's coming along. I've only got up to the second level so far. It's taken a little bit longer than I expected, but it's also quite big. So what I'm worried about now. And
That's
I'm
an
at the process
understatement. It's massive.
We've seen a couple of the teaser pictures posted on their Twitter, so if you're not following them at Saga of Lucimia, you can check it out. They've posted probably more than that, images, little teaser images of what you've been doing, and it does look fairly massive.
Yeah, so I mean, I can certainly make it a lot bigger, but
Go for
but then
it.
the problem we're going to be worried about then is performance. So at this point, I've kind of finished up where I'm at. I'm going to get it over to these guys, and we're going to test it for performance to see how much bigger I can actually go with it. But yeah, I think it's going to be pretty impressive, and people are going to like what they're going to see. So.
Very nice.
Yeah, the reason I told him to just go crazy is we've got a pretty good chunk of assets now built up over the last couple of years, and our goal from the beginning has always been to have these dungeons be large enough that they can support a campaign for the course of several weeks to potentially 2 or 3 months in the bigger dungeons. And the thing we have to worry about right now, which is what he just mentioned, is performance. So he's finished the first 2 levels, and we're getting those basically uploaded to our repo, and then we're going to be testing that to see how performance holds up, having a zone that's that big, and see how it holds up once we start adding mobs in and all this other stuff. If it holds up, we'll go ahead and maybe add a third level to that and see how that one holds up and so on and so forth, because we're kind of we don't know how far we can push it. So we have to see how big we can realistically make it before we have to start splitting things up into separate individual zones like Upper Guck and Lower Guck. As it stands right now, if I had to make an estimation, I would say the size of the zone that he's built right now, given the type of game that we're developing, would probably last players a couple of months if they wanted to explore every nook and cranny. Considering there's no mini maps, you're going to need to run around and discover things. You're going to have to figure your way through it. You're going to not, you won't have a compass or anything like that.
I plan
Darkness,
on sitting down
torches.
with a notepad.
Yeah, and you're just going to have to figure it out. There's going to be quests and puzzles and doorways that you can't get past without a thief, doorways you can't get past without scholar. So there's all these things that factor into making these things more epic than just the layout, because size is not what it's all about. It's not about just dumping hit points into the mobs to make them take longer to kill. It's not about adding more mobs so that there's more to take out. It's not about making the zones bigger so that it takes more time to get through. It's a lot of this is about that sandbox environment where the content really is emergent and kind of player driven. So it's all coming together pretty good right now.
And that's one thing I've definitely actually done with this dungeon. I haven't even showed these guys a lot of the stuff I've actually done yet, but this dungeon I've designed for people to explore. So I'm not going to release any main details about it, but you got to explore.
Yeah, it's what we've seen. He's shared about, I don't know, an hour and a half of videos on YouTube to us internally to watch as he does these walkthroughs. And the last one he did, I was just sitting there with this internal debate raging about, can I share it? Can I? It's really cool stuff. So
I'm a little upset you didn't even send me the link. It's just, I'd have been quiet, sort of. Maybe. Now, I guess, how did you get your start with this? Like, what gets you into world building? Like, what made you want to do that?
A few years back, I mean, I've been an avid gamer for, I'm getting pretty old now. I've just turned 37, so I don't know, for the last however long, but...
So old.
I'm so old.
I don't know, I might be the youngest one. Asteldian, how old are you?
I'm 32.
I am the youngest! Yes! Yes!
Still a pup.
Yeah,
But
I turned 30
no,
this year, so...
I think I got to a point with a bunch of the guys that I've been playing games with. I mean, I've been in a gaming community with a bunch of guys. The guild's called Prophecy. We've been together for quite some time through various different games. And we got to a point one day where we said, why don't we try and make our own game? And I was a bit of a noob. I didn't even know that you could download engines to be able to do this kind of thing. So I said, all right, yeah, let's give it a crack. And I think we started off with the Hero engine. And I thought it was, the shizballs. It was really cool. And I actually never got into Unity for quite some time. I'd been through all the different engines. I played with UDK for a while. I did CryEngine. I did Essenfell engine. I went through all these different engines. Finally tried Unity, and honestly, when I first tried it, I didn't like it. I think this is back in when I was like version 2 or something like that. Went back to the Hero engine because I liked certain aspects that they use, but I don't know, one day just kind of, I think that's when I come up to the Soda Scene Jams and they were saying that you're using Unity. And I said, all right, I'll give it a crack again. So I loaded Unity up, and ever since, I've never gone back to another engine. I've actually did a diploma in 3D game design and whatnot using the UDK. So I've got probably a little bit more experience using that. But to this day, I'd still say that Unity's just been the best engine I've actually had to work in. And I don't know, I think a lot my love for gaming after getting into the actual developing and creating scenes, it's just kind of opened up a whole new avenue and just made me realize how much actually goes into building and making games. So I think that's kind of stuck with me, and I've loved it. So
Very nice. I know a lot of people have been saying that Unity has more or less opened the gaming development scene for a lot of people just because of its, I don't want to say ease of getting into, but almost that's kind of what I want to say, because so much stuff, if you're not into 3D modeling or whatnot, is available to you to use, so you can work on what you need without a lot of interaction from others until you're ready to really start pushing stuff out. Am I wrong in any of that?
It's very user friendly, I find, compared to a lot of the engines out there. I think the thing that really kind of helped them was when they first came out, before they've changed to their new versions, they had the free version. But a lot of the other game engines, you couldn't use it unless you actually bought it. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I first got invited to test out some things with the CryEngine, just to get a basic user license was something like $250,000. Mm-hmm. And people can't afford that. So, Unity kind of really kind of opened up to a lot of indie companies and whatnot to get into it because they had that free version to use. Mm-hmm. Now a lot of them are all jumping on board now with Unity, and they've got free versions or they've got subscription-based versions and whatnot. So
I know there's a couple of them. Unreal has done it. Amazon just released their Lumberyard to everyone, just like, here you go, have fun. And a few others, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think they're all jumping on the bandwagon because, one, I mean, it's getting, there's a lot more indie developers out there these days, mm-hmm. and so they might as well make their product available. And if they don't do something about it, then everyone's going to jump on board with Unity. And yeah, there you go.
There's your market. I know with Amazon, it's like free to use, but if there's some legal mumbo jumbo with it, like you have to use, if it's an online portion, you have to use their servers unless you purchase something else. There's a bunch of it, but it's still neat to be able to jump into. Asteldian, why don't we go ahead and hop into our questions, because we kind of got some background from these guys, and you have a lot of really good questions here that I would love to hear pretty much all three of you hit, because I think all of you, each one of these questions, except for with a few specific sections, like everyone could at least answer from their point of view. So I would love to hear like Tim, then Andrew, then Joe kind of hit each question from your point of view. So, Asteldian, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll start with the one you guys kind of touched on a bit earlier. It's how hard is it to balance making something look good with actually making sure the assets don't cripple performance for the players?
I think that right now we're still looking at, the Unity engine is pretty intuitive in that regards. So it's not very difficult for things to perform on most modern computers. None of us have, well, I think a couple of us do, but the majority of us don't have huge gaming rigs, and we're still able to run the game at a reasonable level, even with zero optimization. That being said, we do have to pay attention to this because one of the big things for us, like what Andrew was talking about, is going to be size. We've talked about some of these zones in the game. We want to make these zones big, and by big I mean huge. We've talked about the potential of making Elmar Forest like 20 kilometers around, in size. Something that would literally take players 4 to 6 hours of real time to get across before they hit a zone wall. Can we do that? It remains to be seen, because then you're talking about adding in, literally tens of thousands of trees and all this other stuff. So, that's a bridge that we have to kind of just cross as we go through it. But optimization is always key, but we're not going to be doing any graphic optimization for quite some time yet. So,
Andrew, like with that same question, what are steps that you would take if someone took like your specific build and said, "Listen, we want this size here. This is what we want, but we have to make it work." What would be some things that you would change or adjust to accommodate performance?
Well, there's various tools, within Unity itself that can be used, such as occlusion culling. You got your assets, which are set up with LODs and whatnot. So there is a lot of various tools that can be used to do it. But then I guess it comes down to also texture sizing and stuff like that. Do certain things need to be really high res in texture, and all of that kind of thing. And then there's a lot of things that come into play. When I was building my dungeon, I was looking at some of the effects that I could put into it, and I thought, okay, it looks really cool here, that looks really good. But if I overdo it, I know it's going to affect performance. So I'm like, you just got to toss up, does it really need all that fluff within that certain section? So there's a lot of aspects like that you've got to look at as well. Okay, it's good to have the world look as detailed as possible, and I have people go into it and just go, holy crap, this is really cool, but is a lot of that really necessary? So you're going to have to work on certain areas where you don't need all the fluff, but other parts where you do need it. So there's a lot of different tools we can play with within it. And I'm sure there's a lot of tools that I haven't even come across yet, but there is a lot of things in that sense that we can do to drop down frame rates. I'm currently running around my dungeon at the moment between 50 and 60 frames per second. But then there is some spikes where I turn around to a certain way and it'll drop down to 30. So, it's just, then it comes down to troubleshooting, figuring out what it is that's causing that, and, if it's a matter of removing it, changing up texture sizes or whatnot. So,
right. Joe, what about you, sir? You're given a model, looks amazing. What do you have to do in order to make it work?
Basically, same type of thing is try to get as much detail in as possible without the high polygon count. So base mesh, always start out with a good base mesh, and your normal mapping, texture maps will basically accommodate for the high subdivision detail. So, like that model has 5 subdivision levels to it. So the higher you go, the more detail you get. So I'm going to bake out the maps in the highest subdivision level and apply them to the low res. So it's basically going to fake the detail.
I'm laughing because it looks like your camera is being eaten by like a gremlin and it's slowly pulling it away.
Oh, is it?
It's really funny because like as you're talking, your face is going closer and closer to the corner. It's like a rat has hold of it and is slowly like I can pull it away as long as I go slow.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. This is a brand new house. Maybe it's built on an Indian burial ground or something.
Your camera's moving of its own accord.
Yeah, that should not be happening, really.
Poltergeist going on, I'm telling you. It was really funny. As you're talking, trying to explain, your face is slowly moving
Oh,
towards the corner.
I see the look on your face like, okay, what am I saying here? So
I didn't want to interrupt you because it was good, but I'm just sitting
didn't
there
think-
watching your face go closer to the corner. Nice. Excellent.
well, hopefully we could keep the seriousness in that statement without,
Yeah, we'll separate out the two. That's how it's
Yeah.
gonna roll.
Yeah,
Yeah, everything was great, and
it's called a happy accident, right?
that's right. All right, Asteldian, why don't we hit up that next question?
Okay, yeah, I think Andrew kind of answered it from his side already, but how do you decide to sort of progress onto world building or 3D art and sort of decide if something you want to do? Was it progress from an artistic background or a coding one?
I guess that Joe, that would be kind of all you.
For me, is definitely artistic. Basically taking a drawing to the next level. Really, is that's what that whole progression to 3D was. Is just being able to create something and kind of breathe life into it. That's the main inspiration for me in that.
And I think when I got Joe on the call, before I even said anything to him, I'm like, "You're the artist, aren't you?" Because he has that artistic look about him, and video games in and of themselves, they are an art. From the storytelling line of it, like, I mean, we look at it as entertainment, but from you guys, the amount of work and artistic skill that needs to go in to make these look good, especially as graphic engines and stuff get better and better and can absorb more and more detail, it takes a lot. And having like an artist, like specifically, I've been playing The Witcher 3 a lot lately, and their world artists are fantastic, but one of the things they had to bring in was the fact of, how do I make this world, like when I walk out of Moran, or however you pronounce it, and you just see the world and feeling like you're there, the artistic mindset of, how do I portray something that's in a digital realm to make it feel realistic and bring life and not static? Art. Art.
Yeah.
No, it's true because the written word can only do so much. I mean, you can visualize all you want in your head, but at the end of the day, perfect example is we can do these types of streams every day of the week. Same thing on our channel. They're only ever going to get an X amount of views. The moment you do a gameplay video, those views quadruple or are 10 times more. And the moment we put out a screenshot of an in-game item, the views skyrocket. Visuals, regardless of how you feel about, the game's graphics, may or may not need to be good. It's all about the mechanics of the story, blah, blah, blah. I cry BS every time because people don't want to play an ugly game. That's why none of us want to go play, as much as I love Pools of Radiance. If I go back to play that game from, was like 86 or 88 or something, I can't play that. It's 30 years old and it looks like crap, so visuals do make it. So
Right. And as the technology advances, you can't get away with a low MS Paint texture model anymore. Someone actually has to go in there and create like those high 4K resolution textures. And it's these guys who do that, the artists who are in there drawing and getting your textures, getting your modeling done, to put those assets in there. Just because the engine can handle it. You can give me a game engine that can have like the most beautiful, realistic view in the world, but if you have a really shitty modeler or artist, it's still not going to look good.
this is true.
Asteldian, how about we move?
Okay. Yep. So how long does it take to turn a concept piece of art into an actual 3D asset for the game?
Yeah, whichever one of you go first. I'm actually kind of interested both from the world building side of things and the actual concept. So, Joe, why don't you go first with your concept, then we'll have Andrew talk about world building, and if Tim wants to throw something in there afterwards, he's more than welcome.
For me, it's kind of hard. I can't I can't give a specific answer just based on schedule and whatnot. I don't really have a linear way of working. It's just basically whenever I have free time, I kind of hop on and do what I can. So obviously, I would say the 3D asset would take longer just in the sense of for me at least, the technical side of things like baking textures, that type of thing. And it's just more, it's a little bit harder on, the hardware that I use. So, sometimes it could take a few hours just to bake a texture, right? So, in that sense, it's going to take longer, but for the actual modeling itself, it could kind of go either way, depending, just the amount of detail that's in it, right? So it could go either or. Yeah, ask me that maybe in a year, so I have a better list of things and I can actually mark it down.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Andrew,
I'll
what
do
about
that.
you?
Yeah, well, I'm lucky enough where I haven't had to deal with that kind of aspect yet. But I have built stuff before working off concept, and it can be time consuming. There's a lot of different things that are involved in the process. So even when you're looking at a concept, if you don't have that creative flair in the back of your mind, it's still hard to kind of project that image into a 3D model. So yeah, but I haven't had a chance for at the moment with these guys to actually experience working off that, but I'm sure I'm going to get to that point soon. And when I actually do, I'll answer the question a little bit better. But yeah, I'm lucky to just say, give me the keys and let me play with them.
All right, excellent. Let's see, where are we at, Asteldian?
Getting our way through them. On the world building side of things, do you always sort of have a pre-planned sketch on paper before you start making it in the world, or sort of a vague directive from Tim, I think he mentioned earlier? Or do you ever just sort of freehand it, think, right, I'm going to sit down with an empty
I'm going
block and
to
just make something?
jump in and answer this question to some degree because Andrew's relatively new with us, and what he's doing with this dungeon was a little bit different than what we normally do. I just kind of told him, we had a Skype call, I think, where we were on Discord actually, and it was just like, here's our assets. We've seen what you can do. Here's our assets. Just make something big. With the rest of the world builders, the way we typically do it, and this is what I'm trying to schedule a world building meeting next week sometime with the team, because once Andrew finishes up with this dungeon, we're moving into the next stage of, we're going to do 3 more zones, and then we're going to come back from that and we're going to start working on doing some secondary layers for some of the other zones. So what I typically do is I have the world map. I know kind of what it needs to be done in there, and I give a rough description of that to the world builders. Each builder has a different way of doing it. My brother, and I'll let you speak to this, Andrew, because I don't know what your process is for doing this, but typically, like, my brother will take it, and he likes to just kind of take it, make a big zone, and then start just kind of chipping away at it and working his way down until he gets something that he feels comfortable with. Alex is very more of a procedural developer in terms of his world design. So he'll take the basic zone description, and then he'll actually do sketches and artwork, because he's somewhat of an artist, and he likes to work from an artistic perspective and say, well, here's what I know it looks like in my head. Now let me make it look like that in the game. So then he has an actual, here's the map version, here's the sketch version, here's what I'm going to make into Unity. I don't know what your process is, Andrew, so I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, I'm very similar. I don't really go off a plan. I mean, I'll see basically what it is that I need to make, and then I'll just same kind of thing, just open big world, and then just kind of chip away and make it. I kind of do things very kind of old school. I don't even know if that's probably the correct word to use. A lot of people use all new tools like ProGrid and all this kind of thing, the snapping tools that make everything work. I like doing everything by hand. I'm kind of like an old, I don't know, old carpenter. Instead of things being made by machines these days, they do it by hand the old school way. That's how I do it. I like everything that I do within my maps to be manipulated by my hand into the, I feel like I can give it a little bit more love when I do it that way. So yeah, I don't really go off set plans. I mean, I can work off set plans. It's not that I can't do it. I like to just have an open slate and just kind of weed my way through it.
And that's a more artistic kind of plan right there. Like, I couldn't do that. I would need the 100% plan laid out in front of me. That's how I do all of this. Everything is pre-planned out because I like following that exact step, what I need to do next. And I don't like thinking about, like, that the wide abstract idea. Like, okay, you've come to the end of this line. What do you want to do next? Like, it could go anywhere. It's up to you. I'm like, no, I just want you to tell me. Straight line. Let's do this. Exactly clear. Because I don't have that artistic ability to make it up as I go. It has to be linear for me.
I'm more of a wing it kind of guy.
Yeah, I got sidetracked so often doing this dungeon that I've been doing because I'll be working in one room and I'll drop something and go, oh, that would look really good over here. So I go over there and the next minute, 2 hours later, I'm in a wholly different area of the dungeon and I'm like, crap, get back on track, get back around there and start working my way through. So my whole dungeon, it wasn't pieced together as it flowed through. It was like bits and sections were done and then I just kind of all put together at the end of it. So too many things going on in the brain at once.
I guess. I mean, maybe that's where the logical mind has the somewhat of an advantage. Hopefully, unless they're not very logical or get stuck. But yeah, it's often hard to get sidetracked, except for on these shows, and I don't know why. I try to plan, it doesn't work. Asteldian.
Right. Yeah. So the last question I think is really to do with things like players always make what they think is simple demands, like, I want to be able to sit down on that chair that's in the middle of the tavern or whatever. How hard is it to actually make that happen without the clipping issues and all sorts of nightmares that can happen?
I'm just going to say that right now. It's hard. It's all these little things that people take for granted. To put it into perspective, you guys asked earlier how much time does it take to create a 3D asset. So I just want to put this into a little bit of perspective if I can. If you stripped away the Unity engine, we would not be where we are today in the Unity store. Because if you think about what it took, and I haven't watched the documentary in a while, but there's a great documentary on the making of EverQuest somewhere on YouTube. And it's been a while since I've watched it, but it's very informative, and when you start looking at every little thing that you think about has to be created from scratch. Everything. So it's not just the character model, it's the shirt, the boots, the gloves, the breastplate, all of these little things. Every single asset can take anywhere from, it could be 3 to 4 hours up to 2 or 3 weeks to create. And when you start thinking about needing literally tens of thousands of assets, okay, we have a 30 gigabyte asset file right now, and I'd say that's maybe, if I had to estimate, and this is a very rough estimation, I would say that that's maybe 60%, maybe, of what we need to completely flesh out Volume 1 and a lot of Volume 2. But that's only like 60% of it. We still have another 40% that we have to create. And you start thinking about this in terms of man hours. And it's hundreds and then thousands and then tens and thousands of man hours. Every time you look at a Kickstarter and they're asking for $5 million for a game, if you look at the pie chart that they always have in there, game costs are never things like servers, and they are, but I would estimate 90% of the costs for any game development company are salaries for employees. Because to create all of these things takes insane amounts, and in some cases, crippling amounts of time. And when you're looking at a company like us where everybody's working part-time, in our spare time outside of our day jobs, taking in these little requests from people, it's an impossibility. There are some things that we can work into the schedule if it's something we think is mission critical. But we've had some people like the role players. A lot of role players are like, well, I want to be able to sit in a chair. Okay, I really want to sit in a chair too, and I really hope that we can have that. But I can't make any promises to that because of the amount of man hours that goes into making that happen. Because there is the little things like the clipping, and how does the cloak fall when you sit down, and does the sword move to the right direction, or is it through the chair, or is it through the chest of the body, and does the, how does all of this work? Do the sound effects match up? There's all of these things that go into place. It's an insane amount of time to make all of these little things come together, and hundreds and thousands of lines of code and everything else. So these little things, there is no such frickin' thing as a little thing when it comes to game development. These are all huge tasks.
Oh, I mean, and it's an aspect of every part. Your art asset team, your animators, your coders doing the scripting to make sure it all works. You're hitting everybody.
Now that I'm on a rant about this for a minute, I got to take a minute to get this off my chest. I see a lot of people who like to criticize and say that, it's so... And I'm doing something Robert doesn't like. I make voice sound effects because I get kind of sarcastic. But you get so many people who are like, oh, it's so easy to make a game in Unity. You could just buy stuff from the store and put it all together and it's going to magically work. No, it won't. There's a reason why we have a team of, right now 15 people, because all of this stuff has to come together like this. And one person cannot make that happen. If you look at Project Gorgon, it was, 7... I might be wrong on the time estimate here. It was something like 5 or 7 years before they even went to the Kickstarter. And they did a couple of Kickstarters before that failed, if I'm not mistaken, before this last one finally went through.
Like
and that's
5 or 6 Kickstarters. It was a couple.
Really? I knew it was at least 2. This
it
is a
was
husband
a
and wife
few.
team.
Yeah, it's
A
like
husband
2
and wife
people.
team who basically spent all their spare time over the course of 5, 6, 7 years trying to do this. Okay, that shows you the reality of how much work it takes, and those were 2 people who had previously worked in the game industry and kind of knew the way around it. You start looking at a game like The Witcher, which had, I believe, 250 plus employees and something like, $300 million of money thrown at it to make. Think about that. 250 people. 250 people making a game that only has, and I say only because it has an insane amount of gameplay, but it's not an MMORPG that's meant to have, 2 years worth of gameplay. It's a single player game that has a limited lifespan. You run through it and you're done. 250 people. Think about that for a minute. Each one of those people is doing something integral to that project. Okay? So when people say stupid stuff about how, the Unity engine is so easy, that's why people like these guys use it, because anybody can do it. Okay, if anybody can do it, why haven't you done it? Why aren't you making the game that you keep complaining doesn't exist? If it's so easy, make it happen. And the reality is that it's not so easy. It takes a lot of people working an insane amount of hours to make it all come together. And I couldn't do this without artists, without the programmers, without Dave, without all these different people coming together. I can't do it by myself. That's why I had to go out and find people that wanted to work on the project together. And yeah, that's kind of my rant. I should probably just...
No, it's true. I mean,
much.
it took me like 4 hours to get my little diamond in Blender working. Now, given I had to learn it, but still, that was a lot of time just getting...
Well, that's the other thing, too. I mean, we're
bounce.
definitely up against a learning curve
Yeah.
that some of these guys don't have because they've been doing it before in the past. But even if you look at, and like, I don't know how many of you guys watched last night's Pantheon stream. I watched it this morning. Things are starting to look and come together. Regardless of whether you like it or dislike it, it's starting to become a fully fleshed out game. And it's taken a lot of people over the course of like 2 or 3 years now to get it to the point where it's at now. And that's with a team of people who know what they're doing, who have done previous titles, who have worked in the industry.
Been in the industry for 30 years now.
Yeah, so, I mean, these things take time. So to kind of end my rant, there is no such thing as a simple solution. Everything takes lots of effort from multiple people to make it all come together in that mesh that is the finished product.
Right, absolutely. Stella, I think that was the end of those questions, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's all the questions I had.
All right, excellent. I think that's pretty much going to come to the end of this show for us, guys. It's been great having both Andrew and Joe, getting to meet you guys, getting to talk a little bit about art and assets, because that was awesome. And of course, Tim, I hope we didn't beat you too hard and get too much out of you.
Don't forget, servers are on this weekend for anybody who wants to log in and have fun.
Absolutely. Definitely get out there, get in the servers, play with some friends. I mean, they have... I've been in it with the last build. They've got a few wandering bosses around, a few other little things that you can play with to kind of get you in there and see what's going on. And definitely, like, hey, share it out. Because, I mean, they've already talked. They're a small team. I'm sure they don't have tons of money for marketing budget, so we are the marketing, us and what they can do on their social media. And
we do have, ironically enough, and we're going to be releasing a new expenditure list shortly. We're going to start earmarking some money for advertising. The bulk of what we're going to be doing is grassroots, just like what we're doing here. Because there is, I do this for a living with my other day job. It's just time is all it takes. If you've got passionate people and they're willing to put the time into it, you find success every single time, because it's not about luck. It's not about investment money. It's just about, if you're willing to put the effort in, if you're willing to sweat for the project and bleed for the project, results always happen. So it's just a matter of keeping your nose to the grindstone and going from there. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, we do have, we're getting ready to start some small advertising stuff. We're going to do some Facebook and YouTube stuff. So, and we've also got convention money being put aside for next year. So
we actually just got a question in chat asking whether or not we talked about the physical book guide yet, and he had a question on it.
Ask him.
And are you guys? I know you guys are considering a physical book.
What's the question? Yeah.
I'm going to try to see if I can get it, because he didn't really tell me one question. He just said, do you guys have the physical book, or what are you guys doing for that physical book? Let's talk about that first.
Nothing. It's an idea. It's something that someone asked about. We took it internally. We said it sounds like it's something that could be possible. But the reality is that the prices we've been getting quoted are anywhere from $10 to $15 per book.
Right.
That's not counting the map. That's just the book. $10 to $15 a book. And that's, most places want us to do a print run of at least 1,000. So even if we got at the lowest possible price, we can't blow that kind of money on books. That's not going to happen. So the only way a physical game manual would become a reality is if there were enough people that wanted to either do a Kickstarter, or if we could find a printer, and this is the hard part, a printer that would actually let us print on demand. Because it's a little bit different than, printing an ebook that's just text is one thing. But when you start talking about a book that's got illustrations and maps and all of these different features that we would want to have in a traditional guidebook / player's handbook, it's a colorful, illustrative design book. And unless you're willing to order 10,000 copies, you're not going to be able to get that price down to like $5 per. It's just not going to happen. So. Sure. We don't have a $250,000 budget to just throw at printing a bunch of books just because 100 people want them. So
the specific question that he asked was, let's just say a perfect world, you have tons of people who want this. We got it. All right, we're going with this route.
Okay.
What specifically would this book contain? Like, what kind of specifics?
It would be a player's handbook. it would talk about stats, it would have lore snippets, it would have illustrations, it would have information about cities, it would have excerpts, it would talk about things that are in the books, but in a player handbook style. So if you're familiar with the Dungeons and Dragons player's handbook, that's essentially what it would be. It would be like the old school EverQuest game guides where, we used to spend hours and hours reading through these things, up before the game came out.
The toilet manual.
Yeah, it was, these were things, it's like you're looking at concept art, you're looking at art for the elves, you're reading up on the city of Felwith and Kelethin and all the lore about, Antonia Bale and all these other characters. That's the type of information. So it's more of a lore, kind of a lore thing than anything else. It's not a guidebook for the game per se. We say game guide, but that really just means that there's basic information about the world and the lore and everything else. We would want to make it something so that it's evergreen content that is not going to be something like, hey, the game, level your character to 50, because that's something that's probably going to change over the course of 3 or 4 years of gameplay. So,
are describing systems that eventually may not
Correct.
even be in the game anymore.
Correct.
We've already all seen that.
yeah.
Yeah. I understand that. And, some of the more AAA studios and stuff like that who put out those kind of books tend to stick away from that. They do a lot of concept art, making of kind of stuff, etc. And that's always fun reading.
Well, I mean, and the collector's edition we have is going to have. That's the only one that we've got a physical anything attached to, and we're just sending out a cloth map with the collector's edition. And there's a PDF version of an art guide, like an art manual with behind the scenes stuff. But that's a PDF version. It doesn't take a lot of time. I'm exaggerating. It only takes time.
It doesn't take a lot of production time.
Yes, it does. It's just time to put together a PDF. Whereas to printing a physical book, there's physical costs.
Mm-hmm.
We can bury
Shipping
sweat
alone
equity.
is crazy.
No, and that was my main concern in the post that I made on the forums is people need to realize, for the Teespring shirts that we did last year, it cost as much to ship a shirt to my house in Mexico as it did to buy a shirt. So for me, there's no economic sense in buying a t-shirt because I'm going to pay the same amount of money. On the flip side, Teespring charges an insane amount of money to ship because I just ordered 2 shirts for Dungeon Crawler Network, and they only charged me $7 to ship 2 shirts. So I think it just depends also on where you're going. But those are just t-shirts, and I still have to pay $7.
By the way, I just have to stand up and show that
I
off.
will have my wife and I will have some shortly.
Ooh!
I got 2 of them. So, but that's the thing. Even just something as lightweight as t-shirts costs $7. Now you're talking about a book. You're talking $15 to $30 to ship it, depending on where in the world you want to ship it.
And different countries have different costs.
Yeah, and we can't cover those costs. We're a small independent studio paying for everything out of pocket. We're not going to rob money from the pre-order store to pay for a fluff item. It's something that if enough people want it and they're willing to pay for it, we'll put it together. If not,
I do the same thing with DCN. If I do giveaways, which we've done giveaways in the past,
right?
And we'll use some of our Patreon money for giveaways because it's for the network. But I don't do shipping as part of that. But I've often dipped into my own funds and went, all right, here's a $5 item we're giving away. Ship it to someone. They give me the address. $20. Okay.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And this is why almost all of those Kickstarter projects that fail and fail miserably and they run out of money, please, it's not always. There is a lot of cases where it's somebody who's misspent the money, booze and drugs and did stuff that they shouldn't have with the money. In many cases, these people did not anticipate shipping costs. And when it came time to ship the products, they were like, holy crap, we don't have the money. We produced all these products. We spent the $2 million to make everything. Now we can't ship it. You have to think ahead. So that's what we're trying to do and tell people that, look, it's a great idea on paper, but unless you guys are willing to pay for it, we can't make it happen. So
Absolutely.
I mean, game development we can bury as sweat equity, but we can't do physical products.
And that question came from Spirit. He wants to say thank you for answering his question. So
no worries, man.
That's really cool. Yeah, I hope that goes underway because I know it is what it is. But I'm sure you guys are the same way. We all have those I'm sure you still, well, maybe not you because you threw a bunch of your stuff away, Tim, but a lot of others who collected those physical collector's
still
edition
have-
stuff.
Yeah, I still have my 2 collector's editions of Vanguard Saga of Heroes. I still have all my 2nd edition D&D. I got a huge collection of 2nd edition D&D stuff. All the leather-bound additional manuals for the now I'm blanking on the names right now off the top of my head. The little red leather-bound appendum. I don't remember what they're called. Yeah, they're like appendices. It's like the spell books, and the fighter handbook, and all these different subclass handbooks and everything. And so I've got a lot of that stuff. It's stashed, I think, in my sister's basement, probably.
Hope she doesn't have water damage.
No, but I kept like 5 boxes of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, collecting things is a passion for some people, a hobby for others, and we'd like to accommodate if we can. I have been pricing out cloth maps, so we may be having something to show people this summer in terms of what we're going to have for the collector's edition.
Excellent. All right, guys. I'm not going to keep you any longer than what we've already done, but thank you guys so much for coming on. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Asteldian, for making yourself available tonight. I hope everyone's had a good time. Of course, check out sagaoflucimia.com. Head on over there, register. Even if you're not ready to back them, join the forums. Talk about it. Do stuff like that.
Yeah, and we're doing stuff. We're playing Elder Scrolls Online on Monday nights and Thursday nights. I got other people like Eldaron joins you guys in the Dungeon Crawler Network on Final Fantasy XIV, and also on the nights when we're not doing stuff with Saga in Elder Scrolls Online. We're toying with the idea of possibly doing an EverQuest 2 something on one of the progression servers, but it's a time factor right now. Nobody has time to do it, so you can find us in lots of different places. So even if you don't want to pre-order, come join the forums, hang out, get in our Discord channel, ask questions.
And I'll have the links to the Discord, both DCN Discord, which a lot of these guys are part of us. They've been hanging out with us. They can't get away from us anymore. It's awful. As well as their Discord that you can join and chat. I mean, and Tim, you do random QAs from time to time in your Discord where you're just like, I got
Once
an
every
hour.
couple weeks.
Throw some questions at me.
Once every couple weeks.
All right, guys. I guess the next Tavern Talk will probably be in about 2 weeks' time, more than likely. Remember, the servers are up, so if you're watching this live, get on out there. I know there's a couple of you out there. If you're a pre-order person, you can do it now. Servers are up until 8 on Sunday, 8 p.m. Sunday, right?
Eastern time, yeah.
Eastern time Sunday. So definitely get on out there, hop in, see what it's all about, especially if you're a new pre-order. And thank you so much for watching this episode of Tavern Talk. We hope you've had a wonderful time like we did, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Have a good day.
See you guys.
See ya.